Hello, everybody. How you doing today? Welcome to one of our podcasts. This is one of our launch podcasts for the corrective lenses. I have my corrective lenses right here. The podcast is an extension of the county seat program, which we did from 2011 on KTVX ABC4 till 2022. And we called it corrective lenses because we wanted a chance to get a little bit more intimate conversations and take all the spin that the world has in it and all these issues that we cover and just talk about things without rose-colored glasses, without sparkly filters, just good, wholesome conversation about things that are important.
You promised me a sparkly filter. This is going to be a little rough.
Well, I think my agent did. I did not promise you a sparkly filter because I don't have any. Anyway, David Edgell, by way of introduction, is a trainer and a coach. He owns a gym and a health program in Ogden, Utah, and I got connected with him because he connected with Phil, who's part of our At Your Leisure family. And they got talking behind my back, I might add, about
you got a little voluntold, didn't you?
Got a little what?
Voluntold.
Oh, yeah, I got voluntold for this. That's correct. They were talking about how remarkably broken I have become doing this show for all these years. And Dave said, I'll call you your 10 and raise you 10 that I can get him to walk again. And isn't that kind of how that went?
That's fair. Yeah,
Okay.
I like unbreaking broken things. The name of my gym is called The Shop. It's named after a place where my brother and I used to build hot rods, and I think you can do the same thing with people.
Interesting.
You might have to put in some new parts. You might have to tune it a little bit, but I think the end result of knocking out the dings and dents makes for a better machine at the end.
So in the process of doing this, Dave has developed a program specifically for outdoor recreationists because many of us who have spent years driving 4 hours to get to where we ride our ATVs, to get to where we go to the top of the mountain, sooner or later the football games that we play on the top of the mountain go by the wayside, and pretty soon all we're doing is driving 4 hours, riding for 4 hours, and driving for 4 hours, and then our day shot. And it doesn't hurt for a week, doesn't hurt for 2 weeks, but after like 15 years of it, it starts to add up, and then you don't go places. And so that's how I got into this guinea pig role with David. And as we've been training, we've had a lot of conversations about things, and that's where I wanted to go with this conversation today. We have a unique situation where we have taken the world's biggest critic of how our nutrition and health is being handled, and we've actually put him in charge. And it required President Trump to break party lines, and I have just been amazed at how much people who used to love all of the great nutritional and good things that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. told us, how much they hate him now because he's telling us the same thing, but he's actually doing something about it, and he's been given the power to do something about it. So now I've seeded the conversation for something to talk about. What I would like to have people understand is a little bit of your story. How did you get to a point where you're training people like me who are literally broken to a point where I could hardly move around and get us back on our feet?
Unlike a lot of people that find themselves in my profession, I didn't start off as an amazing athlete. I started off as a broken little kid. I was eating very healthy as a child, and I would go to school and throw up. And it happened often enough that the teachers started to say, oh, he must be doing it for attention, because that's what a 9-year-old kid wants to do, is be known as Mr. Barfy. We started looking into it, did blood work. The results came back as nothing that the doctors had ever seen, and they just kind of stared at me and said, well, you figure it out. And it took a long, long time to get it figured out. Within the last 10 years, I had a doctor that finally measured my insulin production. I massively overproduce insulin in response to having my blood sugar levels go up at all. So I can turn spinach into body fat, which is not wonderful. I take and turn normal people into world-class bodybuilders. I can take a bodybuilder diet and make myself fat on it, and that's just not a normal thing. So I had this curiosity about nutrition. Why do I get sick off of what the book says is supposed to be healthy? I pursued this. I added weight training in at 11 years old. I've got a degree in nutrition from college, which I've had to unlearn a lot of that because I realized that there is a lot of politics when it comes to nutrition. It's unfolding in front of us right now, real time, in our federal government. We have to keep farmers employed or we all starve to death. That means we have to sell a lot of their product and make it viable market-wise. Well, selling a lot of corn, wheat, and rice is really easy, but not necessarily doesn't match what a lot of people's genetics really can handle as food. I've got a podcast called Catch 22, and I talk about eating for ethnicity. The Pima Indians in Arizona have the highest rate of diabetes in the world. You look at their ethnic eating, and they don't have a lot of carbohydrates in their diet. You look at the Eskimos, Inuit, okay, fat and red meat or something along those lines is the backbone of their eating. They don't have any heart disease. They don't have any diabetes. You introduce the supermarket into that equation, and you introduce disease because you're making those people eat things that genetically they were not programmed to do.
So who's on the other side of that equation? I mean, I can I can see the protein only, fats and proteins. So.
Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, you have lean fish, lean fowl, a climate that can grow lots and lots of rice, lots of fruits, lots of carbohydrates. Central America, I've got a lady who's from Costa Rica. If she goes on a diet that's less than about 50% carbohydrate within 3 days, she's just a mess. So depending on where you're from, we didn't really move around a lot until the advent of the steam engine. The only thing that moves humanity is war and famine.
Interesting point. You're right.
So in the bodybuilding world, the people that really seem to become the leanest are ones from the west coast of Africa.
And why would you attribute that?
Because there's never really been a famine on the west coast of Africa. The Congo has lots of food. Okay. East coast, yeah, we've heard of Somalia, we've heard of Ethiopia and having those famines, but the west coast, and until you go through a famine, your body doesn't. Fat people survive famines. The skinny ones all die. So if you have a place that has feast and famine cycles, thank your fat ancestors for getting you through that. But that's why, because we don't have famines anymore, especially here in the United States. We have supermarkets, and we go and eat those foods that tend to stack on as body fat. So we have a health crisis because of plenty. There's never been an empire in the world where the poor people are fat. Till now.
Good point.
Okay.
Good point.
So we have diseases of excess now. I was blessed by at 9 years old having to dig into this and go, why is what they're encouraging making me sick? Now there's stuff coming out where there was research in the 60s falsified so that the sugar companies wouldn't get blamed for the heart disease they were starting to cause. There have been trillions of dollars thrown at health issues caused by pushing things like high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's been revealed. The curtain has been pulled back at Oz now, and people are starting to become aware of it. What do we do about it? Those questions, because we have an entire bell curve of genetics, some people are going to do great on high carbohydrate diets. Some people are going to do great on high protein or high fat. But I advocate a thought process of, hey, looking into your ancestry and seeing where your people came from and try and eat that way.
What happens when you've got somebody that's truly a melting pot?
Well, we're
and
mutts.
a little bit of everything.
Americans are mutts. Okay.
Yeah.
I have one of my clients, amazing athlete. She came to me. She was I think it's called a stage 3 CrossFit coach. Basically, she was the highest certification of CrossFit coach. She was starting to push about 180 pounds. She's like, I teach people to be fit, but I'm getting chubby. At the time, CrossFit was advocating this thing called paleo diet, eat like a caveman. And I looked at her and I said, Ling, your cavemen are different than my cavemen. And she thought that was some kind of a racist thing. Well, she was part Korean, part Guamese. I'm Scandinavian. There's no amber ways of grain in the fjords of Norway. Okay. I told her, go talk to your mom and have her teach you some native Korean dishes. And she started to do that, started to explore that side of her ethnicity. 5-6 years later, she was down to 148 pounds, had abs, 52 years old. Okay, imagine having abs like a bodybuilder at 52 when you weren't trying to be that lean, and went and almost set a world record, 352-pound deadlift. She missed it just by a little bit, but she's set state records here in Utah in lifting because she started eating for her own genetics, which is pretty fascinating because I'm not sure where genetically Twinkies fit in the scale of things. But we have so much food, let's call it food adjunct. I heard that term recently. It's kind of like food, but not really food. Like the little cheese things in the wrappers that's kind of like cheese, but it's not really cheese, but it's really nummy. That's not really something that any of our ancestors really survived on.
So my first instinct when you said that was that I wanted you to spell it. Is it Adjunk?
Probably would be the best way to describe it because you're not going to forget
Or
that.
is it Adjunct?
Well, most people add a lot of junk to their diet, and so in my quest, I got into powerlifting competitively at 18 years old because I wanted to pick a sport that I could do for a lifetime, not one that I do for a little bit and then have to set aside and then go, now what? That was a great choice. It allowed me to explore the science behind movement. It allowed me to take advantage of some of my mental strengths. I'm not a genetically gifted body, but it allowed me to push a little bit. But with one year of exception, since 1999, I've weighed over 300 pounds. Well, I'm 53 years old, and I don't want to be over 300 pounds anymore. There's no need for it. I'm not a super heavyweight in competition. I can come down in weight. I'm still going to be strong, but I don't need to be that big. Some of my athletes have been exploring different ways of eating. There's always somebody trying to come up with a better way, which is absolutely fantastic. We crucified Dr. Atkins 25 years ago.
Yeah, well, most did. I
Okay.
didn't because it kind of worked.
Well, that's the thing. We renamed.
Until he died from a heart attack, of course.
Well, but we renamed it. We called it keto. Okay, but now there's one that's even more extreme. If you paid attention to the world, you've probably heard of Jordan Peterson talk about it and other people. A couple of my athletes decided they wanted to manage their body weight, and they did a competition January of last year where they wanted to see who could lose the most weight in 1 month. And I think that's ridiculous because it usually comes with really bad consequences. But we had 4 strongman guys that lost a ton of weight and didn't lose any strength. And that
by doing what Jordan Peterson does.
By doing a carnivore style diet. Jordan Peterson does he's talked about the lion carnivore, which is basically water and salt and red meat, because he's got some allergy issues. But there's different shades of how strict to do it. But these guys dropped a whole bunch of body fat, didn't lose any strength. And I don't see that usually happening. So by about this time last year, I got really curious as to what that might do for me. Because I've done keto type of diets before, Atkins diets, and they just leave me exhausted. And so the 1st of May last year, I jumped into it wholeheartedly. And short answer on what's happened is I've lost 100 pounds in a year. And I haven't lost any strength, haven't lost any muscle. And some crazy amazing things have happened to me that I've had to go down the rabbit hole of studying, and I understand even more. Like I say, I've got a degree in nutrition, but I was set up by Dr. Molly Smith to not just take her word for it, but she taught me to critically think. And she said something in 1995 that I knew I'd remember for the rest of my life. She said, the best I can hope for is to teach you how to find information and to critically analyze it. I knew that that was a gift that she had just given myself and the rest of our class, because she said, we're finding through technology ways to look deeper and deeper in the body and understand it better. So in the last 30 years, we've looked deeper. Who's listening? Are we still listening with 1950 ears? Are we have we upgraded to color television and followed science, not indoctrination, but actually been curious about what's happening? And so I've got curious, and I've learned, and people have been poking on it, and we understand it better. So I was told, hey, you've got to have carbs, you got to have vegetables, you got to have this. I would get sick every time I'd put those in. I was like, I turned spinach into body fat. Who does that? This guy. And felt a little guilty about jumping into it, but I needed to know within a week. So here I am driving along in our Suburban with my wife, and I looked down. I said, babe, did you know that the steering wheel's round at the bottom? Because I hadn't seen my steering wheel for a while because my belly had been pressed up against it. It wasn't the body fat I lost in the first 12 days. It was inflammation in my stomach from the food we were eating. And she cooks. She's an amazing cook. We were cooking and eating like my bodybuilders. But the carbohydrates that we were eating was making my guts inflamed. It was shocking how much went away in just a matter of days. And she's experimented with wheat flour instantly. Within hours, her feet become inflamed and become a problem. So even if a person is not necessarily genetically set up to do a high-fat, moderate protein, no-carb diet, it gets rid of a lot of the allergens that might be in our food. Now, we're recording this podcast within days of announcing that they're taking a whole bunch of really toxic identified food additives, especially dyes, out of our food. Okay? They've identified those cause problems. They're going to find more things that cause problems. Now, I don't have to be a radical nut job about it, but something that's causing inflammation, causing problems, maybe we shouldn't have that as part of our food.
So a question though, how much of that really is controlled by politics? Because it seems like, I mean, the whole RFK thing just really opened my eyes, because he was a champion one day,
and then he was blackballed,
and then he's a pariah the next, because he's talking about stuff that people don't want to hear. People that make money don't want to hear.
So everything is politics and perception. Okay. Politics, some people think politics is something that just happens in Washington, D.C. Politics is everybody getting together and deciding how we want our society to move. That's all it is. This is politics. We're deciding how we perceive that things ought to move and what direction and how fast. The more we talk about it, rather than yell at each other and light each other's cars on fire, the more we talk about it, we can actually have adult solutions to real world problems. The problem with policy in our world right now is we yell at each other. We yell at each other because somebody's making a buck on it somewhere at some point.
You think that's really the core issue?
Absolutely. If you can.
So if Rhea and I yell at each other at home when we're.
If you're filming it and putting it on your OnlyFans site, I've seen your feet. You shouldn't do that. No. You can monetize anything, okay? And the more you monetize something that might not necessarily be amazing, high fructose corn syrup, okay? That was a waste product, okay? Corn, basically, they weren't making any money off of it. 1957, they figured out how to make it into a sweetener, and then you follow the money as to what happened in pushing it into our food supply. So I think you can take any political issue that is a problem and figure out who's benefiting the most from it financially, and that will educate you more than the problem itself.
Do you think that every single mistake we've made nutritionally falls to a profit motive, or do you think some of it's just we didn't know?
Well, I'm going to make the assumption that most people don't know. We live hand-to-mouth existence. If this keeps me going, I don't care. But let's go back into the 1990s. You remember the company RJR Reynolds?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Philip Morris?
Mm-hmm.
Remember how they got in trouble for adding stuff to tobacco to make it more addicting?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who owns General Mills?
Philip Morris.
Uh-huh. Do you know who owns Nabisco?
R.J. Reynolds.
Now, I'm not going to finish the thought there. Draw your own conclusions. You grab a box of Ritz crackers from the 1990s, there's maybe half a dozen ingredients on there and you can pronounce them all. Grab a box of Ritz crackers right now and try and pronounce anything more than a couple of the ingredients.
I really wish you hadn't have said that because I like Ritz crackers. Now I can't eat them.
But it makes you think a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does.
So how many ingredients does your beef have?
Well, it should have one.
Yeah. Okay. How many ingredients does your chicken have, or your egg, or your... So I'm not saying everybody should go out and be, on a carnivore diet. But if we get back to real food, it's going to make a real difference on your health.
So do you think that there's even a shot of that until we teach people how to cook at home again and make that the place they want to be?
So I work with a lot of young executives that are very well to do. Okay. I don't know that they own a kitchen anymore. They're spending astronomical amounts of money on DoorDash and Uber Eats, not even going to the restaurant anymore, not even going to a drive-thru. They poke it on their phone and it magically shows up. I think we got to do better. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe bringing back home ec classes back into the schools again. Okay. Maybe.
When did they disappear? I mean, I've been out way longer than you have, so... Was home ec still?
I don't know if they even have it, but I know that they started scaling back some of those fundamental things as long as 20 plus years ago. I got lucky. I had a family that taught me how to cook. I've got a dad that just absolutely would love to cook. Okay. You ever heard of Sumna cooking?
Who what?
Sumna cooking.
No.
It's when you go and open your cupboards and you grab some of this and some of that, you put it together and it ends up pretty good.
I should have known that was coming, Dave. I really should have known that one was coming.
But that's how Dad would cook. He grew up in Missouri, out in the sticks on a farm. You cook what you have, and you turn it into amazing things. My wife and I were joking about it the other day. We are a melting pot here in this country, and everybody brought their comfort food, and all of these other countries' snobby elites, American food, no. Americans are so fat. Have you tried our barbecue? We're fat for a reason. It's really good. We know where the good stuff is. I learned a long time ago you should never follow skinny people to food because they don't know where the good stuff is.
Yeah, okay. That's Who Moved My Cheese. There's a good book about that.
we have all of the comfort food in this country, and it's delicious. Okay. But I think a pie made in the 1950s was probably healthier than a pie made right now because of some of the stuff that we put in it now versus what wasn't in it then. So going back to unadulterated food supplies, fewer herbicides sprayed on stuff, things like that, I think can fundamentally help everybody. But ultimately, end user has to choose when to put the fork down, what to buy. If you go to the grocery store and you buy crap and you're hungry, you go to the cupboard, you're just going to eat crap because you have no other opportunities. I've got a friend that he's an avid hunter. Because I spend all my time working with other people, I don't have enough time to go out and hunt. Right. But he provides me with tremendous amount of opportunity. He's given me elk and moose and venison and antelope and pheasants and no hormones in that meat.
One would hope.
Okay. You go up this time of year and you watch the elk as the springtime starts to blossom out and they're eating the greenest salad you could ever possibly imagine. Okay. My wife and I have been eating those sources of protein, and it's amazing how clean that food is. Here in Utah, we have very amazing opportunities for locally sourced produce, okay, meaning even beef, poultry, We have a lot of places that you can grow your own poultry. You can have chickens. There's some states that are pretty restrictive on that. We have still a lot of rural in Utah, and the opportunity to produce some of your own. I think we ought to embrace that when and where we can. I think not just cooking our own food, but learning where it comes from or where it should come from is the next step. Well, David, why would you go hunt meat? Just get it from the supermarket like everybody else does. Because what, they magically make the meat in the back? I mean, yeah, there's some people trying to make laboratory grown meat right now. There are some political.
And you know what my response to this is? Why bother?
Yeah, because those cows seem to be making it really, really fine out on the range right now. Now, that comes full circle back to politics. When somebody who's not doing anything figures out that they can step in, complicate the process, and put money in their own pocket, then you have people that are not welcome to the process screwing with farmers, screwing with ranchers, taking away water rights, interrupting that process. Okay, you in your adventures around have seen that, and that's a real-time problem that we have. If we're talking about good source food to help us be healthier, you can't screw with the people that are making it.
So, on that subject, this is part of the conversation in kind of a broader sense. We are turning our backs to very real issues about very important things like water, like food,
the stuff we've got to have every day.
Every day, right. And we're allowing people to tell us that we should be eating bugs because the process of raising food is killing the planet. But the process of not raising good food and stopping what they're doing will kill us.
I don't think the process of raising food is killing the planet.
Well, neither do I. But
the people
how many people within a mile radius of this studio think that there may be some truth to that?
Well, remember what I said. Follow the money. The people that are poised to make the money off of that notion are trying to convince you that your hamburger is killing the planet.
Right. And do you think that when they meet in Stavos to talk about getting us all to eat bugs, do you think they're eating bugs?
I think anybody who would think that they're eating bugs needs a wellness check because they're not. Okay.
I did eat an earthworm once. It's not that bad. It kind of tastes like escargot.
Okay. There's a lot on this planet that's edible. Okay. But why? We've spent tens of thousands of years developing agriculture, and we've taken some animals and we've made them very good at it. Okay. Mm-hmm. A cow captures carbon, if you want to talk about it that way. Oh, but they fart. Not as much as a colony of ants and termites. Termites make more. Okay. I think the point is well stated that if you're growing a field of soybeans, you're killing tens of thousands of forms of life just to grow that field of soybeans. You grow one cow and it can provide thousands of meals just out of that one animal. So again, I think some people are trying to make an issue out of something that's been a non-issue so that they can profit from it ultimately.
Well, there's probably some good evidential proof behind that, but we are at a point where we are rethinking policy. We've put a couple of people in and given them some power, and they're getting a lot of pushback right now to fix some of these problems. But I want to look at it. I want to look at it broader. I came to you to try and get mobility back. Okay, this string of unfortunate circumstances made it so that I didn't move so well, and that's really kind of hard to do when you've founded and hosted and led people across this country on family-oriented outdoor adventures. And you've made some progress in what you do, and I commented to you on one of our visits is that I was in therapy with a physical therapist, good guy, a reputable place. You have done more to make my lower extremities work as a trainer than they have as a physical therapist outfit under prescription and insurance and all that other stuff. What's wrong with the picture?
I was in school with those guys. I ran circles around them.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was doing this clear back then. I was actually applying what I was learning the very day that I was learning it. So I knew that I needed to pay a lot more attention. For them, it was still theoretical. They weren't going to do it for years. So I think a lot went in one ear and out the other. More than that, I decided, like I said earlier, at a young age to really jump into a strength sport because much like auto racing, it would push me to learn how to better fix people that weren't trying to get it to the same high point that I was. You go to NASCAR and they're figuring out how to make that car more efficient and get more power. Those technological jumps end up in our automobiles years later, but that's where it's developed. I think there's so much that's been learned in sports. You hear about your favorite player messing their knee up and they're back into their sport 6 weeks later.
Yeah, but don't physical therapists claim the credit for doing that?
Absolutely. Do you think you have access to that same level of competency as the person who answers to the insurance company before they answer to you?
Okay, I get that, Dave, but here's the point. If they're science-based, shouldn't the therapists that are running the facilities where everybody goes, shouldn't they be on that same quest for truth?
Where does the science innovation come from, the middle or the fringe?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, I'm of the belief that it comes from the fringe.
So the doctors that are covering their butt, the therapists that are covering their butt, they're reading out of the book, they're following the prescription until somebody changes the prescription. This is what we're going to do to move your shoulder. Now, my wife, a couple years ago, had both of her shoulders replaced. Physical therapist showed up day one. Her shoulder did a reverse replacement. For those that don't know what that is, instead of having the ball on your humerus, they put a ball in your scapula and put the dish into the top of your humerus. Okay. She'd had a previous shoulder surgery, so a regular replacement wouldn't work, so they had to do a reverse replacement. Genius doctor, love him. He had to do it literally mid-surgery, change streams, okay, and came out, and it's been great. The physical therapist showed up, and she said, do you know how to do therapy on a reverse replacement? Because it's less stable in one direction than the regular replacement. He said, well, I kind of think that it might be the same as the other one. She fired him on the spot. Kinda, might, maybe, think. This is what you do for a living. You should know. Just to backtrack a little bit, I had an amazing nutrition teacher in college, and I was asking questions that I was needing to apply that day with clients. And she said, come see me after class. She said, David, you're asking questions that are going to confuse these people if I give you the right answer. So I'm going to pull you aside and I'm going to teach you in my office so that we're not going to derail them as they're going into the hospital to do nutritional programming, or they're going to do a high school lunch program or an old folks home.
Yeah, but shouldn't those people be armed with that information?
What was she afraid of?
I guess the backlash, losing your tenure.
There it is. Okay. She taught me because she knew what I was going to do with it. She knew that I was going to be a sledgehammer with it, and I have been, and I've pushed. Okay. But she had to cover her own butt. Again, where does innovation come from in science? Out there on the fringe where somebody's pushing. So about 5 years ago, I got certified in a weight training modality that helps people heal injuries in ways that I've not seen anything else work.
Okay, put that in simple English for me.
I can't for liability reasons, for exactly the thing that I'm talking about. If I use certain words, like prescribe, I'll get in trouble. I can't prescribe, I can't diagnose, I can't. So there's certain words that the state of Utah will be like, nope, you can't. You crossed the line. So I've had you do it on your calves. Mm-hmm. Okay. It works, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay.
One of the things that brought this whole conversation up in the first place.
So I'm one of 4 people in Utah certified to do that, But the state of Utah went and clamped down on one of them because a physical therapist, went and complained to the state, well, that's physical therapy. No, never was claimed to be. It's just a form of weight training, a form of reprogramming muscle to where it can work again. But people get upset if they perceive that you're treading on their toes. So in science, the people that figured out that the earth wasn't flat, sorry, you flat earthers, it's not flat. The people that figured out it wasn't flat were heretics.
Yeah.
The people that figured out that the earth isn't the center of the solar system were heretics, that the sun wasn't the center of the universe, etc. Anytime somebody's figuring out something new, Atkins, okay, they're labeled, ostracized, and usually, run off in some form or another, so that we don't disrupt the order of things. Now, when I went to this certification, I got to sit down with the guy who had come up with this concept. Now, he was the first guy to total over 3,000 pounds in powerlifting. Okay, that's a squat, a bench press, and a deadlift added together. He did it at 46 years old in a sport where younger guys are usually stronger. He had a background in physical therapy, and he was just trying to look for a way to heal the body quicker from some of the damage that can build up handling those kind of weights. And he was really worried that the science hadn't caught up to the things that he had observed. The science meaning, we know why this works. Well, science is not, we know why this works. Science is, what's going to happen when we do this? Science is curiosity. It's not definition. The science has been decided is a pile of horse doo-doo.
Yeah,
okay,
you're right.
The only science that's decided is stuff that's been figured out that doesn't work. Like
until somebody
fusion.
finds something different even about that.
Right. Okay.
I mean, Einstein does not get a pass.
No, this is the extent of our knowledge based on what we've been able to observe so far. Back to what my physiology teacher said is to find information and critically analyze it. So I was talking to Donnie, and I said, Donnie, your job isn't to figure out why it works. Your job is to figure out what works. And somebody else is going to look at the measured result of the things that you do. So his techniques are in a bunch of the Super Bowl championship teams, a bunch of the big, huge D1 college schools. His techniques are being applied. Okay. Mm-hmm. They still don't know why it works. Somebody else is going to look at that and poke that until they figure out the actual mechanisms behind it. Not his job to figure out why. His job is to figure out what. Somebody down the road will compile the information. They'll go, this works. Somebody else will poke it for a while. 25 years from now, it'll show up in somebody's school book somewhere about what works and why it works. By then, we've moved on to stuff that's much, much better. So when it comes to nutrition, there's somebody out there poking to figure out what works, and they figured out stuff that works better.
Pulsing the system.
And somebody's going to quantify it somewhere down the road. My sport is very quantifiable. Okay, this is your level of strength, and you did it better than somebody else because gravity doesn't change. And we can do pretty much the same thing around the world, so you can compare. That's very straightforward, very numerical. Other things are a little bit more subtle than that, but as we're starting to be able to see further into the human body, we're starting to quantify, hey, your genes are set up a little bit different than their genes. Okay. Now, I know, again, we're in a time where we can pretend that our genes are different and we can, magically wish them to be something else. No. Every cell in your body's got a code. And that's the operating system on which we work.
And if you're an alcoholic, it's a barcode. I'm sorry. I couldn't. That one just kind of popped out there. I'm sorry.
But as we poke the fringe to figure out what works better, what's found on the fringe pretty soon becomes accepted, normal. Hey, this is working well, or this is not working well.
So how do we change the culture? I mean, neither one of us are experts on this, but I respect your input. How do we change the polarity of the center of science and the center of practice so that it attracts this new information instead of repels it?
I think it's a personal responsibility. Each of us needs to be curious. Chad Booth is the most curious person for Chad Booth that exists in this world.
No, Rhea is the most curious person for Chad Booth.
Nobody else should be more curious for you than you.
Yeah, that's
okay.
True. Mm-hmm.
We talk about special interests in politics.
Yeah.
We are the ultimate special interest. I am specially interested in not having bad things happen to me. Okay? Nobody's going to be more concerned for you than you. So if a person wants to live a little bit better, they have to be personally curious about that process. If you have something that you want, one of my clients said something really interesting. We all jump into politics when it comes time for the presidential election. And you have less impact on the outcome of that than any other election in the country. But who goes to city council meetings? Who goes to their school board? And those two meetings have more impact on you personally than any other level of politics. So we have to change our personal focus and say, there's a lot of, you go into any grocery store now and you see somebody that with the little blue vest on, dumping stuff into a whole bunch of different baskets. They're shopping for somebody because nobody can even be bothered to shop for their own food anymore. Well, to myself and my wife, we would never do that because we're ones that like to squeeze the tomatoes.
This is that who's doing that.
Yep. And
the whole produce department's got mushy tomatoes in it. It's your fault.
No, we took the ones that were perfectly ripe. The fact that you didn't beat us there is your fault. No, we should be personally responsible for how we shop. Mm-hmm. It affects us financially. It affects us nutritionally. It affects us in a whole bunch of ways. But we're in a place and a time where we're denying as much personal responsibility for many of the aspects in our life as we possibly can. And if you want a different outcome, that's the fundamental thing. We have to assume more personal responsibility.
Well, let's adjust that conversation about a little personal responsibility, because I don't want this time to pass without us being able to specifically talk about your program for people who are trying to re-engage themselves with the outdoors. The program that I'm guinea pigging on, so to speak.
So,
how did you determine that this is what you wanted to do? I mean, the shop is kind of fun because every time we do an exercise, you are shoplifting.
That's right. That's actually the name of the website is myshoplifting.com. Mm-hmm. I think it's hilarious. That's my twisted sense of humor. It's not easily forgotten. But that's what we do in the shop, is we do lifting in the shop. So it makes horrible sense to me. I
found it entertaining. So
being from Utah, I cannot imagine a better place for outdoor activities than Utah. People travel the world to come here and see some of our corners. Okay, they miss. Fortunately, if we can keep it quiet enough, they'll miss some of the other really cool places, and so the locals can still have a place to hang out.
Well, we've at your leisure's ruined that for you. So
thanks. Mm-hmm. But we could go from right here to, if you're a fan of Yellowstone, the train station is literally 5 minutes away from my house. North Ogden Divide is where they filmed the train station. Yellowstone was filmed on 25th Street. We have amazing places to visit, and you don't even know it. But we neglect ourselves for long enough, and we have a really hard time doing those things. A lot of people are afflicted with the used to disease. I used to this and I used to that, and they stop doing it, and things get rusty. I see people go into health-altering circumstances, meaning they're trying to get themselves healthy, and they do more damage than good because they remember what they used to be rather than admit to where they're actually at right now. And in my competitive years, I've seen athletes in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that would blow your mind how they look and of the things that they are capable. But that takes some time and some effort to get to those stages. But I've seen people that didn't start till late that are able to get to the same places. So it's never out of our grasp, ever. Okay? It just takes a little bit. I was talking to one of my friends several years ago. He was 60 years old or 63 years old, had some damage in his body, and I looked at him. His nickname is Stump, and I said, "Stump, we're going to cram 1 year of progress into 3 years." And he looked at me and said, well, that seems kind of backwards. Well, if you make 1 year of progress in 1 year at 20 years old, At 40, it might take 2 years to get the same level of progress. And at 60, it might take 3 years. But you're still going to get a pretty significant level of progress. It's just going to take longer. Just be a little bit more patient. That's one of the key things. Whether you're coming off of an injury or coming off of a lack of use, you can't just jump into it and make it overly complicated, overly complex, and beat yourself. You got to ease into it just a little bit. And that's one of the first experiences I had is clear back about 97 or 98. My best friend's father came to me. He was diabetic. He was overweight by a whole bunch. And he had decided to go to Africa on a hunting safari, and he needed to get in shape for that. Now at 57, 58 years old and weighing 320 when he should have maybe weighed 240, that we had some things to do there. And not of the physical capability of somebody that was 25. I had to train him like he was 58 years old and broken. That really opened up my eyes as to what you can do and what you should do is a little bit different rhythm for getting ready for the outside.
But you can do it, right?
You absolutely can. You just have to be a little bit more patient and start very, very carefully. The program I've got you on, I've designed it specifically for people that are maybe really out of shape at maybe 35 to in their mid 70s and maybe typical, we'll call it typical mid 70-year-old. Specifically for this reason, let's take elk hunting in Utah. It takes now about 25 years of applying for a permit before you're going to draw out. So if you're a 25-year-old kid starting to draw out for points, you're 50 before you're going to draw. And that's happened to my very good friend. He drew out 2 years ago. I've known him for 25 years. He is in physically amazing shape because of what we've done. So he's not your typical 50-year-old. He was the one that kind of said, hey, there's a real niche for this because there's other outdoor hunt-oriented programs, but they're breaking people. They're hurting people. Okay, you start off at 27. You have a 27-year-old programming for somebody who's 60. They're going to hurt them. So why not train for something that's sports-specific, age-specific, stuff like that? Ease into it.
So people look at it. I probably don't come off as bad as I actually was because cameras.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
How broken were you when you first walked into the door with me?
Well, I couldn't walk more than about 2 blocks without having to stop.
Let's get even more basic than that. If this is proper posture, standing straight up and down.
Okay, just for people who are on the podcast, that's straight up and down.
Okay. You were leaning into the wind a little bit. Okay. At the hips, you were canted forward probably about 15, 20 degrees.
Yeah, it was a lot.
That was.
I don't think it was quite that steep.
Oh, you're about there. Okay. And I really noticed 2 weeks ago that you were standing up very straight.
Yeah, I didn't Friday morning, by the way. Thank you for Thursday's
You're welcome.
workout.
You're welcome. But that's the thing is all of this has been earned. This is literally the ultimate in personal responsibility. I was talking with a client about it the other day. All the rich people would be really, really buff if you could pay somebody to do your workouts for you. But this, in the common vernacular right now, they call it a flex. Oh, I own a Lamborghini. It's a flex. I own a nice suit. It's a flex. You know what's a real flex?
A flex.
Looking good naked. They call it a flex for exactly that reason. Okay. You can't fake looking good naked. You either are or you aren't. And it's 100% personal responsibility. So even being fit has become a political issue. If you go back about a year, they were coming out from the left and saying, fitness and being in shape physically is a far right white male thing.
Yeah,
which is
I dismissed it.
Which is a dismissive thing, but it's like it's a way to deny personal responsibility, and I think that there's a lot in that, in what highlights right thinking versus left thinking. As there's group think on the left and there's individual think on the right. That's painted with a broad brushstroke.
You think that is the biggest single
I think
thought process difference between conservatives and liberals?
I think it is an underlying fundamental generality that I can paint with a pretty big brushstroke.
Is that why they can't understand each other? Because they can't change the loci of their logic?
I think that's fair.
Because, I mean, obviously a guy that thinks in group is
My group is more important than your individual. No, my individual is more important than your group.
Yep.
That's talking past each other, no matter what you do. So the ultimate individual think is your own personal fitness. Well, we need to pass these laws so that I can be more fit. No amount of laws is going to get you out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning to go catch a workout. You're going to do that. Okay, so it is the ultimate personal responsibility. Beyond the personal responsibility, I see a lot of people willing to be responsible for their own personal health. But there's so much noise in the health world, anything from medications to food to movement, that especially with social media, that's a train wreck. Okay. And it's why I started some of the things that I started, because I couldn't point at any one source and say, hey, these guys make really great videos if you need to be reminded of how this exercise is done. So I started to take that on personally, jumped into some tech lanes of filming it, recording it, and putting it there so my clients could go, oh yeah, that's what he said about doing that, so that they have a resource. Because you'll look and there's people needlessly complicating things when I think the real smart guy in the room can simplify it.
So,
okay. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? Well, can you teach it to a fifth grader?
okay, well that would be the good litmus
So
test.
so when you walked into the gym the first time, a lot of people have this experience. It looks like a dungeon. There's things in there to stretch you. There's things in there to squish you. There's
I
things
made
in
a
there.
reference to that.
Possibly did, and rightfully so. Because until you learn how to use those things, they can be used that way.
The ropes and the chains were a little bit much for me, but
Why'd you try and take them home the first day? Wait, that's a different story. But engaging in that personal responsibility bit by bit, it doesn't have to be too much. It doesn't have to be complicated. On my website, I say this very specifically, and yes, it's copyrighted. Movement is life, gravity is health, and muscle kills disease. I don't care how you move. Let's get you moving. Okay? If you move and you resist gravity, go rock crawling or rock climbing, walk up and down a mountain trail,
I
carry a backpack.
I literally
Okay.
can rock crawl without a vehicle because it's the only way I can get up there.
But that's changed, hasn't it? You fought gravity, and now you're going to be able to take the trails on in a different way. Maybe in low gear, a little slow, but you're now opening outdoor doors to be able to move through those things. We've used the indoor tools to open up the outdoor to you again.
And it's
Okay.
I mean, I can see that it's working.
Okay.
And I'm probably the worst critic of it.
Good, you should be.
It's just
Remember, you're the smallest self-interest group.
I'm still not sure that the Chad Walks 3 and 3 is actually going to work because I'm still having trouble walking, but I'm not because things are improving.
You're almost a third of the way through the program.
Okay.
Okay. So your goal is to do what?
Be able to walk 3 miles.
Okay. Doesn't
have to be up a hill. It doesn't have to be in a marathon. I just want to be able to.
So if you're a third of the way through the program and your goal is to walk 3 miles, we should be able to basically, here coming up at the end of this week, have you walk a mile and not die.
I still have to pause, but
Okay. There's people that have to pause on marathons. I don't care. That's fine. Are you living when you do that? Are you alive when you do that?
Yes, I am.
When we go for that 3 mile walk, it'll be the most alive you've ever been in your life. Because it will be harder emotionally than what a trained athlete does for 26 miles on a marathon. Because you had it taken away from you. You had the capacity and you had it taken away. Okay. For those that don't know, Chad hurt his knee, had to have surgery. Unexpected, unwanted. That led to other issues. He's taken a couple of falls that have been real issues. When he came in, I told you that he was leaning into the wind a little bit, mostly to keep his balance, because the doctor said, you're not going to be able to pick this foot up and down. You're going to have some drop foot. You're not going to be able to do toe raises. You're not. Okay. We're proving them wrong millimeter by millimeter by making those things move again. It's not graceful. It's not amazing. It's super frustrating. And that's completely expected. None of this is unexpected. But Chad now stands up straight. He can get his heels off the ground. I can listen to him walk on the treadmill in the morning and tell how tired he is. Because when we started, his footsteps were tap, slap, tap, slap, tap, slap. As his bad leg was slapping on the treadmill like a dead piece of meat. Now he walks tap, 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 tap at about 2.5 times faster than when we started.
True. That's very true.
Okay. That's some pretty crazy progress. Okay. You're about as broken as a person could be, and be on my program without really having to alter it and make it very uniquely one-on-one. Okay. But it's accessible and doable because I framed it and said, you know what? People are going to use this and they're going to be more broken than I can imagine.
Yeah.
And so let's keep it at that standard.
So let's talk about that for a minute because our time's going to run short here pretty quick. So I'm a testament to your program. I think that you are doing remarkable things that other people who have a lot more initials behind their name have not been able to do. I get that. You are an Ogden guy, and your shop is in Ogden, and I'm crazy enough to make the trip twice a week to let you abuse me the way that you do on those workouts, and it's worthwhile. And I want to prove a point because I know that there are thousands of fans who watch at your leisure that have the same problem, and they don't think they have a way out of it. And the best thing that you and I could do is to drive that point home to them that even at 70, they do have a way out of it if they want to do it. But my question is, not all of them can make the trip. How does your program work for somebody that's in St. George?
When COVID hit and gyms were closing down everywhere, people ran and hid in their basement. I've still got clients that are hiding. We taught people to fear a lot. But some new technology happened that was pretty interesting. I don't know that I ever heard of Zoom before COVID hit. Now I think most people that have a pulse have taken a Zoom meeting or something similar, where just like the old cartoon, The Jetsons, you can dial up your phone and watch somebody thousands of miles away do something. I realized at that point I couldn't build a gym big enough for all of humanity and put it somewhere where everybody could get to very easily. I can't even build a gym big enough for all of Ogden or centrally located to where it's easy to get to. Okay. Gyms are like convenience stores. You should be able to have access to one where you're going to hit it the most regularly. Okay. But gravity is the same everywhere. So I realized if I made programs where people could use easily accessed equipment, I mean, even a simple array of stuff in your own home is adequate. You don't need, I've got all the complex tools, but you don't need all the complex tools to just refine being able to move through space. So I started to use some of that technology so that my clients that were stuck far away could access my brain. I'm asleep at 2 a.m. They got a question. I don't want to call at 2 a.m. to answer, hey, was I supposed to turn my pinky this way or that when I was doing my shoulders? Okay. But I wanted them to be able to have an answer to that question. And technologically speaking, we have that ability now. So I've got clients that have flown in very frequently from West Virginia to train with me, from Texas, from California, from all over the place. The average person's not going to need to do that. They don't have the time to do that or the financial resources. Even one-on-one training, I charge like $90 an hour. Okay, most people don't have the financial resources to do that. These programs that I've put together, specifically through Outdoor Training Solutions, are an 18 to 36 week program that You've got days outlined 5 or 6 days a week of exercise where you know this is the sets, this is the reps. Because of a lot of outdoor activities engage a backpack. I don't think you should ever go out walking without a first aid kit, a little bit of water, maybe some extra clothing to put on in case the weather turns. Okay. I've had clients sprain an ankle 100 yards from their car and it takes them the better part of an afternoon to crawl. Okay. It happens. So take some stuff. Well,
that one rings home far too.
Yeah, doesn't.
Personally.
So I have a lot of my training not just done with a backpack, or not just done with you, but with a backpack. I drew out an elk tag in 2012. I started off in 2011. I turned 40. The pictures of my 40th birthday party made me look like a beluga whale. I was fat. Okay. I was far too fat for what I was trying to do in life. And I decided, it's time to do something about that. I finished my world championship in November weighing 355 pounds. I had friends encourage me to put in for an archery elk hunt, start to draw some points. I drew out the first year. I'd never pulled string on a compound bow before. The learning curve was interesting. Had an amazing experience thanks to my friend Andrew Burton and Jason Hansen walking me through something that was, archery hunting's difficult. Well, I knew that I couldn't be on the mountain at 355 pounds. It wasn't until this time of year when I got the tag or knowledge that I drew out, but I'd gone down to 280s about this time of year. By the time I came off the mountain in the middle of September, I was 258 pounds, 100 pounds down in a year. What I decided is as soon as I got less than 300 pounds, I put a backpack on, filled it full of towels so it was poofy, so it was the right shape and fit right. And every time I'd lose a pound under 300, I'd stuff another pound in my backpack. So by the time I was down to that 255 pounds, I weighed my pack coming off the mountain. It was like 58 pounds, 60 pounds. Because for a couple hours, my feet could take what it was like wandering around naked at 300 pounds. That was no big deal. I learned this I took the concept from an Army Ranger sniper client of mine. They call it ruck marching. You put in a whole pile of stuff. Sometimes they'll just have them go out and grab rocks and pile in their packs. We're going to take 100 pounds and we're going to walk at 20 miles. So instead of getting lighter and lighter and getting less out of the exercise, I would permanently make my feet feel that 300 pounds as I was walking, and I became more capable rather than just skinny. So we have stuff like that programmed right into these. So I've got a client getting ready to go to Spain this summer. They're going to go and tour national parks. Well, she needs to be able to wear a backpack and go around and do the things. I advocate the trekking poles. Okay, just like I advocate four-wheel drive. Take yourself out of two-wheel drive, put yourself in four-wheel drive, don't sprain an ankle, put the backpack on. But we program all of these simple notions in a program for somebody who doesn't need to reinvent the wheel on that. They can look at that and go through and go, oh, this is all I've got to do is this, then this, then this. And it scales up, it escalates rapidly enough that within a matter of weeks or months, there is a significant... Limes. Significant physical difference on your body. Okay, like I say, you're only about a third of the way through it, and there's a significant difference in your posture, in your gait, and just in your muscle mass in your calves. Okay, his calf was about the size of my pinky finger when, actually no, I won't disrespect you. It was smaller than my wrist when he started. Okay, and his good calf has probably doubled in size. Even your massage therapist has said that the muscle in your body has expanded tremendously. And we're not trying to turn you into a bodybuilder. We're just trying to get you to move through space in your space and time. So has any of it been intimidating?
No.
Okay.
Embarrassing, yes. Intimidating, no.
Okay. But you're embarrassed because you have a public face that you put out there. Okay.
No, I'm embarrassed because I have to fall onto the floor to get off the bench from doing my curls. That's all. It's that simple.
Okay.
Okay.
I've had women deadlift and pee themselves on the platform. It happens. Stuff literally happens. And you know what? It's okay. It's just we have a lot of embarrassing biology if we let it. Otherwise, it's just stuff that we do. And when one person does it, the next person realizes, oh, I'm not being mocked for trying. I'm not being scolded. I'm not being embarrassed. I'm not being denigrated. I'm being encouraged. That's one thing that I think is important, to surround yourself with people that are willing to cheer you in the struggle.
So how do you help people do this? I mean, we may have had somebody listen to this now and they're going, I want to make that commitment. I don't want to go into my golden years covered in rust. I want to be shiny. How do they do it?
I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I got 2 different websites. The one is myshoplifting.com. The other is Outdoor Training Solutions. There's links that we can put up in podcasting and on video, but you literally go to those. Boy, I hate it when people say the word literally. Literally, actually, go to one of those websites, shoot me a message, tell me that you're in need of help. It's easy enough to where you can go onto the Outdoor Training Solutions site and just sign up. But I still like walking people through it because everybody's journey is just enough different that we need to make sure that you're taken care of.
And I will go on the record saying that there have been a couple of things that have been in your training program where you've said, well, we're going to do this a little bit differently with you because you're a mutant. You're weird. You're different.
No, you've got some broken parts. Okay. And broken parts, there's another guy at the gym right now going through a very similar program. He's 53 years old. I've taken him through other competitive stuff, but since his 20s, he's had bad knees. He had both knees replaced.
This is Scott?
Scott.
Good guy.
And when he first came in January, his knees were the size and shape of pineapples.
Wow.
And I said, Scott, I've got something for you. He bought the program, and he's been going through very unsupervised, but he's been giving me updates on it. He says, how did you know? How did you know to do it this way? I mean, honestly, okay, I've been doing this professionally for 35 years, and I imagine what the scenario is that the person's going through, and we escalate it bit by bit by bit. But him going from having knees that were just squeaking and creaking and not doing well to he's moving now. He's starting to climb up Farmington Canyon and backpack, where he had his second knee surgery for Christmas and his first one for Halloween last year.
Wow.
And now we're almost at the 1st of May, and he's out and moving and doing and running circles around the expectations that his doctors had. But it's programmed in a way to take broken people or rusty people and escalate them bit by bit very, very quickly.
So is the medical profession, the physical therapists, are they going to look back at this and go, there's this well of miracles that are coming out of North Ogden?
No, they won't care. Here's the thing. There's lanes of knowledge. Okay. There's stuff that physical therapists, and I've maybe spoken a little harshly about some of the stuff with physical therapy. The point of physical therapy is to restore range of motion. But because physical therapy still answers to insurance companies, once that range of motion has achieved whatever the goal is, you're kind of cut loose. The next step is you got to get strong in that range of motion, or you're just setting yourself up for danger, for additional damage. Okay. My gym, the business next door, is they're still finishing it out. It's supposed to be a physical therapist that I've worked with for years, that he actually went to bat with the guy who was building the building and said, if you can get that guy in here, meaning me, you couldn't have a better person, because he's wanted to be under the same roof as me so that he can take his people that he gets through physical therapy and plop them in my gym where they can get stronger in a not going to mess them up kind of way.
Yeah.
So there's lanes. Okay. You go from being broken to together, and together
I don't mean
to fast.
And by no means do I mean to disparage physical therapy.
No,
they played a very critical role, and they did a really good job.
Absolutely.
But they got to the end of the limits.
They stayed in their lane,
Yeah.
and there's very few physical therapists that would know how to teach you how to squat 1,000 pounds.
I got news for you, Dave. I'm not going to squat 1,000 pounds.
So, but being able to move gracefully through space again, 3 for 3 is a very critical thing for you. And we have to apply the same level of knowledge to that. Because like I said, it's just as difficult getting you to go 3 miles, a nice 5K, as what it is a healthy person training up for a marathon.
Well, you've done your work, and I'm glad that Phil got this whole thing going, and I don't want to lay either one of you down, and I appreciate your coming on to this podcast. People need to know about this, and they need to know that there is always a redemption point.
I've seen At Your Leisure for years, been aware of you, been aware. I can't imagine being in Utah for any amount of time and not knowing the program and the direction. But you still have tremendously important things to do, and I couldn't let the opportunity fall by the wayside to be able to put you back into the game, so to speak, with renewed vigor and understanding, without having the physical limitations that have kind of messed your head up a little bit. It's like, well, can I still move forward? Well, the answer is yes, but you had to be told and put in that circumstance. And that's, of anything, if I can leave people with this, you're not too broken to unbreak. You're not so damaged we can't pound the dents out. You're not so slow we can't get you a little bit of speed. It might not look like what everybody else is doing. It might not be as complicated as that super complicated thing that you saw on InstaWebs. But we can have you move again, because there's no reason why you need to get to the best part of your life and live your worst life.
Very good. And just so you know, I am right now, as we are talking, raising and lowering my ankles under the table. Thank you so much, Dave, for taking the time. I sure appreciate it. And we'll just have to do a check-in at some other time.
Perfect.
So many things that we could have talked about, and we just never got a chance because we just wander, and it's wonderful.
I look forward to looking through the corrective lens again.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for joining us here on Corrective Lenses. It's a service of County Seat to talk about issues. And we will be back with more, and appreciate your checking in with us. And check us out, the County Seat website. You can find links and ways to share this stuff and how to find David. We'll see you next time. Okay?